Hello and welcome to Grouchy Old Geeks episode 16. My name's Scott and joining me as always is Steve.
Hello. So we're just squeezing this episode into the end of August.
Yep.
We've had a busy month, but we've got lots of news to talk about, and there'll be no spoilers for any of the current TV shows that are wrapping up that I get annoyed at when people spoil online on social media.
Yeah, no spoilers at all. The reason that we're late is I've just moved house. I've been without the internet for 3 weeks, so I have absolutely no cutting edge news. But we've got lots of interesting things to talk about. It's kind of a new show. We haven't planned anything, but it's not. It's just I've got a whole bunch of things here that I thought it would be fun to talk about. I'm sure you've done the same.
Yeah.
So let's just see how we go.
Okay. So I'll kick off with the first bit of news. We've known for a while that Netflix had wanted to create more original content that they owned. I think their goal is to get to 50% or something like that. And Marvel have just moved. I think is it Disney? They're creating their own thing, and they're moving all of the content away, apart from the Marvel sort of TV shows. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, along those lines, Netflix have just announced that they have purchased Mark Millar's content in a Millarworld deal for several $1 million by the sounds of it. And he's been writing a lot of comics that then gets made into TV shows and predominantly films. Mm-hmm. And he's got quite a back catalogue now. He gets the best artists in the business to draw them. They get a share of the IP, and then it moves forward. Now, this deal does not include the stuff that's already in the works or has been made. So nothing in the Kick-Ass universe or the Kingsman universe or the Wanted universe and stuff is going to be transferred. But there's a bunch of other things like Reborn, MPH, and Jupiter's Legacy, which is a massive property that I think could only work as a TV show because there's so much stuff in there. So yes, this is going to be a whole bunch of comic book and sci-fi and kind of genre material that Netflix will own, and they can mine over the next few years and produce all sorts of TV shows that they own. Yeah,
it's a really interesting decision. It's really interesting that they went with Mark Millar, who's on the one hand a celebrity, as far as it gets in the comic book world, but at the same time, less. I mean, not that some of the stuff that Netflix have done with Marvel has been especially family friendly, but Mark Millar is most definitely not all ages comics.
Oh no.
So it'll be interesting to see what compromises, if any, they choose to make on some of that content that of his that they're going to be putting out.
I suspect not. I think it's all going to be quite adult in nature.
Yeah.
Netflix don't seem shy of doing that kind of material.
No, and of course they have the freedom to do it because they're not, they're not tied into the rules that TV broadcasters have. No.
What's your first bit of news?
Yeah. Okay. So, I'm going to go. I've got a lot to choose. So I'm going to go for this one just because you must have heard about this. If you've not, I'm sure you're going to be delighted. And this is a very interesting bit of casting for Creed 2. Have you heard this?
Go on.
Dolph Lundgren is coming back as Ivan Drago.
Yes, I knew about this. I'm very, 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 very excited about this.
Yeah, I thought you might.
Because and we've seen pictures of Dolph in training for it.
Yeah.
The rumour is Creed 2 will be Apollo Creed's son versus the son of Ivan Drago.
Brilliant.
Because, of course, Ivan Drago killed Apollo Creed in the ring in Rocky 2. Sorry, Rocky 3. Oh, shame on me. I got it wrong. Or is it Rocky 4? I don't know. No, it's Rocky 4. Pete's going to kill me. Oh, no. Rocky 4. Sorry. Shame on me. So, Dolph Lundgren's son, I should say, his character's son is going to be in the film, but equally he's still going to be in it. And apparently, Rocky Balboa at some point is going to punch him in the face.
Brilliant.
That's somewhere in the story. So you got son versus son of these two legacy houses, and they start filming it next year. I can't wait.
The thing that I love about the original Rocky series, which regular listeners will know, I came to extremely late in the day to.
Yeah.
Is that it's almost like with the Alien franchise.
Yes.
You've got all these movies that are sequels to each other, but they're all completely different from each other, and different genres even. And the thing that I love about the Rocky series is that they all follow on from each other, but each one they get progressively more nuts, don't they, as they go on? like the first one is actually a really down to earth, essentially love story set against the backdrop of him trying to make it as a boxer.
Yeah.
Very down to earth, very realistic, a very small movie in the good sense. And then by the time we get to Rocky 4, it's absolutely nuts and over the top, and he's saving the world from communism and all sorts of stuff like that.
It's Superman 4, a quest for peace kind of level of.
It's absolutely crazy, and I'm hoping, especially with this casting announcement, this is what's going to happen with the Creed series, because the first Creed was very down to earth, very sensible, and now Ivan Drago's coming back. And then, it's only a matter of time before they start speaking to Mr. T, isn't it? And then
I don't know.
I'm hoping by Creed 4, it's just nuts again. But we'll see. But I thought it was great news. I was so pleased when I read that.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited by that. I mean, it's one of these legacy films that they've just... I was so nervous when it announced Creed. I ended up loving it so much. It was in my top 3 Rocky films of all time. So I was delighted by it, and hopefully this will continue in the same way. But I guess we'll wait and see. So from good news to other news, which I'm going to share with you and then get your opinion on it. Warner Brothers and DC are reportedly in the early stages of planning a new spin-off film exploring the origins of the Joker.
Oh God! It's just. So they looked at Suicide Squad and thought, Jared Leto did quite a good job there. Let's give him his own film. Is that their line of thought, do you think?
Apparently, it's going to be a gritty and grounded, hard-boiled crime film set in the 1980s Gotham City, and they're not sure if Jared Leto is going to be in it. It might be a younger actor, but they're saying that the person who worked on Todd Phillips and Scott Silver, who will co-write the project and will direct it, and Martin Scorsese will produce it. So if it had nothing to do with the Joker and it was a crime film set in the 80s, I'd be really interested. Yeah. The fact that they're doing it in Gotham City still could be interesting within the Batman universe. Great. The fact that it's the origin of the Joker, I'm not interested.
Yeah, it's just, the whole point of the Joker is that he's an agent of chaos. Nobody knows where he comes from. He just is.
Yes.
And that's all that you know about it. So even in Alan Moore's, and I've got some Alan Moore stuff to talk about in a bit, but even in Alan Moore's The Killing Joke, that explores the origin of the Joker, and then at the very, very end the Joker says, but sometimes I remember it differently. As if it's like, that's maybe where he came from, but actually he's so absolutely nuts, he could have been just telling you something completely rubbish. And also in Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight as well.
Yeah.
He gives you this origin story about, his father was an alcoholic and would beat him up. And then he gives a completely different one about his wife being this awful person. Yeah. And that's kind of the whole point. He doesn't need to come from... It's not that you don't even need an origin story for him. The point is that he doesn't have an origin story. It's like... It's absolutely ridiculous. It's like trying to do a sequel to Casablanca. What a terrible idea.
It undermines. So it's like, for me, it's the Darth Vader thing of the worst thing. Okay, the second worst thing about the Star Wars prequels is that you had this terrifying character who in Darth Vader, who's the most feared person in the universe, who goes on this arc and ends up, redeeming himself, and he saves his son and blah 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 and all of that. Then you get the prequels where you've got a whiny boy crying about his mum. And anytime I think of Darth Vader, that's all I see now. It's like we didn't need to see all of that. We just, we didn't want to know. And that's what they're going to do with the Joker. They're going to have this thing where, oh, maybe his dad beat him, or maybe he was bullied at school, and maybe he had one friend who made, always he was cracking jokes and making this friend laugh. So the friend called him, "Oh, you're some kind of joker." Ha ha ha. It's just like, no, don't go there. Don't dig and don't try and find something. There shouldn't be anything. As you said, he's an agent of chaos. We don't want to know. We shouldn't know. The fact that there's multiple versions and no one knows the truth is the most.
Yeah.
It's the mystery about him. So,
and it's actually even worse than you're saying, though, because what happens is when nowadays, whenever they do a prequel to something,
yeah,
they have to cram in loads and loads of things that are in the sequels, just so the fans can go, "Hey, that's a thing that I recognise." Yeah. So it's not just going to be. It's not going to be that. Just that he's at school and one of his schoolmates say, "Oh, you're a bit of a joker," and there's going to be a terrible point in his life, and that's going to what's going to turn him into the Joker. The person that says that to him is going to be like young Bruce Wayne, right? And they were in class together, because that's what they have, because they have to. Yeah. They have to call back to all of these other things that they know, and he's going to somehow come across the Penguin. And Harley Quinn is going to be, like 3 years younger than him at school. They have to. I mean, that's what they did. That's one of the things I really liked Rogue One. That's one of the things that annoyed me about Rogue One, is they just had to cram in things just so people could go, "Hey, that's a thing that I recognise from the other films."
They're going to do the worst thing, as you say, that the ultimate enemy was originally his friend as Bruce Wayne, and he was always trying to cheer up Bruce Wayne because he was sad about his parents dying. It was like, no, don't do that, don't do that. But they probably will. They'll be like,
they will.
It's not
absolutely guaranteed. It's going to end up that Bruce Wayne is the person that inadvertently created the Joker in the first place. Yeah. I guarantee it, because everything has to be connected to everything else in these things, right? And that's absolutely the line that they're going to go down. I'm calling it now.
Yeah. Anyway, have you got some better news? Because I've got some batshit crazy news coming up. But go on.
Okay, well, actually, this isn't going to take long to talk about. On the subject of batshit crazy,
yeah,
possibly for better or worse, I've decided to start reading Jerusalem by Alan Moore.
Oh God, is that a million words, isn't it, or something?
It's a mere 600,000 words, but it is apparently in the top 10 longest novels ever written in the English language.
Yeah.
Feels like it as well. It's.
How far are you into it?
I would guess about a sixth of the way through it. So basically, I'm a sixth of the way through it, which is about the length of a normal novel.
Yeah.
It manages to be simultaneously brilliantly written, and it really is brilliantly written, but also at the same time utterly incomprehensible. like every word, every sentence, every paragraph is beautifully constructed and put together, and it's a pleasure to read. Given how big it is, actually the amount of thought that's gone into each little turn of phrase is fantastic. It's very, very readable. Couldn't tell you what's happening in it. It's like, and it's very famously. There are only two internationally world-renowned celebrities that have come out of Northampton. There's obviously Alan Moore, and then there's me. So I grew up in Northampton, and Alan Moore very famously is from Northampton and still lives in Northampton. And the story is set in Northampton, and he talks all the time about certain shops and certain streets and bits of the town. So it's kind of fascinating to see this sort of absolutely epic novel that's set in this town that actually isn't all that great. And it's an interesting contrast, and it explores multiple timelines in Northampton's history. Brilliant, genuinely a brilliant read. Simultaneously, to coin your phrase, absolutely batshit crazy at the same time. No idea what's going on, but still really enjoying it. Glad I picked it up. If anything, it's going to look good on my bookshelf. People will think I'm really clever for picking
As
it
a
up.
talking point, it'll be interesting.
Yeah,
Beyond that, who knows?
Yeah. And if anybody asks me what it's about, I'll say, oh, no, you should read it for yourself.
Yeah, so it's not something that can be explained.
Yeah,
You have to immerse yourself in it.
I mean, he needed 600,000 words in order to explain the idea. You know, I could possibly do it justice by telling you in a mere 5 minutes what it was about.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely bonkers. Okay, so sticking with bonkers.
Okay.
A few years ago, they tried to do a reboot of Knight Rider on TV. Do you remember this, with Val Kilmer as the voice of Kit?
They've done a few. So they did Team Knight Rider as well.
Yeah,
they've tried a few times, but I do remember that. I remember all the Knight Rider reboots actually.
Okay, so now they're looking at doing another one, but as a film, and they're talking about it being as a sort of action comedy in the vein of 21 Jump Street.
Yeah.
Allegedly, they're looking at getting John Cena, who's a wrestler who's also done some acting stuff, as the Michael Knight role, along with comedian Kevin Hart as the voice of Kit.
Oh, no. Oh, that's...
Now, I've not seen him in much. I know who he is. I know he's a short guy, and he's done some films with like The Rock, action comedy stuff. I've not actually seen him in anything yet. But I'm aware of him. Now that's the story that I thought, oh yeah, I'm not interested. Here's where it gets batshit crazy, okay? Apparently, David Hasselhoff had been talking to some other people, and he'd pitched a very different direction for the property. He said he apparently wanted to do something that was more like and I'm quoting, dark Logan-inspired drama.
Oh boy.
And previously he discussed the idea with director Robert Rodriguez.
Oh wow, that would be dark, wouldn't it? That sounds a lot more interesting.
Doesn't that sound cool? I read the first part and thought, nah, I wasn't going to read the rest of the story. They got to the end and thought, wait a minute, what? Imagine that, sort of Michael Knight in this post-apocalyptic ruined Earth, and he's got this... It's somewhere between like Mad Max and Logan, with him in the car driving around, saving people. Oh, that sounds awesome. Brilliant. Yeah. So the first idea, meh.
So I've seen Kevin Hart in a couple of things. So the first time I ever came across him, he was being interviewed on Jimmy Fallon. And I thought he was quite cool then. I've seen a couple of things. I do really like him. But that the casting, they're going for sort of like sassy comedian Kit Car, if you know what I mean, because he is a sassy comedian. So actually, kind of, and that to me doesn't feel right. Again, going back to the old days, I kind of want the posh sort of English gent, which is what they went with before. I kind of want I sort of want that sound to it, rather than like the wisecracking kind of a car, which is what it's going to be if it's Kevin Hart, because that's what he does. Or this is my pitch, okay.
Okay, go for it.
This is my pitch. Michael Knight, great hero, owned Kit. He dies. They download his personality into the new car. So the new voice of Kit should be David Hasselhoff.
Ooh, yeah.
Now that's what they should do. It's probably a bit late and no one's going to be listening to me anyway. But imagine how cool that would be. David Hasselhoff as the new Kit.
But what if they do the Tron Legacy thing where his son inherits the car through, probate after his father's died. He didn't even really know he's estranged from his father, and he gets this car, and then it's got the voice of his father.
The only thing that he inherits. He goes to the lawyer's office, and the only thing that he gets is just a key to a garage, and he opens up the garage, and there's something there underneath, like a big tarpaulin, and he pulls it off, and he starts driving, and his dad starts speaking to him.
Begins when you think, oh, it's a brilliant car, awesome, and then it's like, hello, son.
All the hairs on the back of my arms are sticking up.
Sold. Someone call Ron Howard.
If only,
Ron, you listening? Hello?
If only anybody listened to us. That is a seriously great idea. That's better than what we're going to do.
That's dark, but that would work in that kind of Logan type film. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, but the comedy thing, meh, I'm not interested. Anyway, you'll go.
Right. So, we've been agreeing with each other too much during this episode. So I'm going to say something now that I'm absolutely certain that you're going to disagree with quite strongly, but we'll see how we go. So at the end of in Empire Strikes Back,
Yes.
there's the bit where Luke leaves Dagobah and Yoda's speaking to Ghost Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan says he's our only hope, and Yoda looks up to the sky, says no. Sorry, you're doing it much better than me. Go.
Yes, and he says there is another.
Yes. So I'm getting a little bit worried about Star Trek. The trailers are coming out, not really setting me on fire, to be honest. It's looking a little bit sterile, a little bit serious. It doesn't have the kind of... It's difficult to say from a trailer, but it doesn't kind of have the sort of family feel that Star Trek has a little bit. I think the emphasis has changed. So just like Yoda looking up in the sky and saying, no, there is another, and this other might not be ideal, might not be our first choice, but I'm actually starting to get really, really hopeful, and this is where you're going to completely disagree with me, over the new Seth MacFarlane TV show, The Orville.
I agree.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
I'm like you. I'm worried. My fear is the new Star Trek show will be a fantastic action-orientated drama with lots of great characters, lots of great actors. It won't be a Star Trek show. Now, for most people, they won't actually give a shit. They'll be like, oh, it's great, it's got this, and blah, blah, and that looks like a Vulcan, I know what that is, and that's like this. And they'll recognise the races, and the ships, and the phases, and all the words are there, but it won't be a Star Trek film. It won't have the heart of a Star Trek film. And that is my concern. Whereas the Orville looks like a next generation version of Galaxy Quest.
It does. I think it looks absolutely brilliant. And actually, so we know that. So Seth MacFarlane is a massive Star Trek fan. He had a guest role on Star Trek Voyager.
Yep.
And if you look at the trailer for the Orville, they're really emphasising the comedy angle. But that's kind of understandable because Seth MacFarlane is known for his comedy. They're putting like a really upbeat sort of comedy soundtrack against it. They're showing lots of comedy clips. But if you read interviews with Seth MacFarlane about it, then it's not purely a comedy show. It's light-hearted. But he's talking about this stuff about... there's a brilliant interview where he's talking about, we're living in this post-Star Trek era where everything is dark and, nothing is hopeful anymore and, characters are grey and ambiguous. And the thing that he loved about Star Trek was, the feeling of... family and camaraderie, and how it was a really positive vision of the future. And actually, although there's comedy in the Orville, it is a science fiction drama show as well that's trying to recapture this feeling of the original Star Trek and the Next Generation and stuff like that. And actually, if you sort of read behind the lines in the trailer, which is got this comedy show and they're showing some of the comedy scenes, it actually looks like a genuinely great Star Trek show at the same time. And I'm thinking, actually, what we're seeing in the trailer is just showing one dimension to what this show could potentially be. And I think it could be great. A lot of people don't like Seth MacFarlane. I do. I like Family Guy. I like Ted. A Million Ways to Die in the West was too much even for me. But I'm really hopeful about this. I'm actually more hopeful about this now than I am about Star Trek. I'm hoping Star Trek's going to be great, but in terms of trying to recapture the feel of, the positivity and the hopefulness and the feeling of family, I think the Orville is potentially going to nail it better than Star Trek is.
I think Star Trek's going to be quite dark and grey, and breaking the rules of the new Federation and all this kind of stuff about first contact and firing first and all that kind of stuff. It's in the trailer. It points to that. So I agree with you. I think the heart of Star Trek is going to turn up better in the Orville than the new show. But I hope I'm proven wrong. I hope that the new Star Trek show does have some of that. But I'm worried about it. But at least, it's, as we're saying, we're living in a feast at the moment. There's so much stuff. I'm not going to be struggling for something to watch. So I'll give both of them a try, but I'm not really sure about that.
The great thing is, though, about this is that actually, you're right, we're living in a feast. There's so many shows to watch, but almost all of these shows are set on they're much more grounded now. They're set on Earth. They're superhero things, or things like The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones and stuff like that. And actually, for a long time, we've been without space opera, which is the genre that most appeals to me. And actually, right around the corner, in a couple of weeks' time, September the 10th, the Orville comes out. So literally right around the corner, we've got these two new deep space shows doing their own takes on it, and I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited to see both of them. They might both be brilliant, but actually, just to see this genre that we've been missing for actually really quite a long time now, I'm super excited about both of them. Surprisingly, more excited about the Orville, but it's in all of our interest for them to end up brilliantly. So.
Yeah, and you've got things like The Expanse as well, which is a sci-fi show, and there are a couple more creeping in and films as well. But yeah, fingers crossed they're both good. Mm-hmm. So no spoilers, but have you seen The Defenders?
No, because I've been internetless for a good 3 weeks now. So and I've been without the internet for 3 weeks, so that means Marvel have made another 8 TV shows that are now on like season 4. So no, I haven't yet. Just that, but just the picture of the 4 of them side by side is fantastic.
Yeah. Have you watched the previous ones?
Yes, all of them.
Okay. So you're up to date. It's just The Defenders to watch.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm not going to spoil anything, but they're now talking about the early plans for Daredevil season 3, which is kind of next on the schedule, as it will. I mean, we've got The Punisher coming later this year. I think it's like November we get it. And then from 2018, they all kind of go back to square one, as it were. We'll get Daredevil season 3, we'll get Jessica Jones season 2, and then it'll be Luke Cage, I think, and then Iron Fist, I'm not sure. But there's online stories, I won't say what they are, hinting at things that they mention in Defenders and they mention from Daredevil season 2, and there've been little seeds planted, and it looks like theories people have been confirmed in passing by Charlie Cox, who plays Daredevil, and it sounds really, really good. They're kind of inspired by a particular comic story in the comics, but they're not going to be a slave to it, just as they've done with the previous series, which is really good news, because they can kind of bend and flex and go in their own way and surprise the comic book fans as well as the more casual fans. But I thought Defenders was good, really, really good.
Awesome.
Seeing them on screen together, the stuff they get to do, it's brilliant. I think you'll really enjoy it when you watch it. And it's only 8 episodes as well. So
yeah, great.
Super lean, super short, very little fat.
Awesome. Yeah, really looking forward to seeing it. Like I say, just that one shot of the 4 of them together.
Yeah.
I just love how Marvel are playing the long game.
Yeah.
And it's a joy just to see it all coming together. It really is. Awesome. Yeah, can't wait to see it. Might start watching it tonight.
Cool. Go on then.
Right. So when we were talking about what we're going to do for this episode, and then we decided that we were going to just catch up, chat about a few things, talk about some news. One of the things that I mentioned is we could do a show about audiobooks.
Yes.
And you said that you tried them. It wasn't something that you were particularly into. You didn't really listen to them very much or anything like that. You kind of didn't have time. Or
it was finding the place to do it, because I can't drive and listen to an audiobook because I'd be concentrating too much on the story. I can't just sit and listen to an audiobook and be like, well, I'd rather just read the book.
Sure.
So I'm not really sure, unless I had long train journeys or something, I'm not sure when I would actually listen to them. But there was one that we were both interested in that I said I would make an exception and listen to this one just because. Yeah,
so there's actually 3 that I want to mention to you. Because actually, so the king of the audiobook world now is Audible.
Yes.
And Audible is an Amazon company, and almost a little bit like Netflix. They've, there's something ridiculous on there, like a couple of 100,000 audiobooks or something like that. But actually, they've started to do their own original ones as well. And actually, they're not really audiobooks. because when we think of audiobooks, we think of something that's been written as a book. So, for example, Battle Mage
it's on there
by best-selling author, award-winning author, in fact, Stephen Arion.
There you go.
And that got converted into an audiobook,
yes.
which is somebody just reading verbatim your book from beginning to end. And that's generally what we think of as an audiobook. Nowadays, there's lots of things that are being classed as audiobooks because they're on Audible, but are actually much more closely aligned with like being a radio play. So something that has a full cast and was never a book in the first place. So, it was written as a script and it was performed and it was designed to be done in that format. And actually, some of them are brilliant. And these are the ones that I kind of wanted to highlight a little bit because it isn't a poor replacement for actually picking up a book and reading the text. These are entities in their own right that are being labelled as audiobooks because of the platform that they're on, but they're actually distinct and their own thing, and it's performed and acted and scripted and stuff like that. And that's a very roundabout way to recommend to everybody the new X-Files on Audible.
Mm-hmm. So this looks so good.
So I've listened to it multiple times now.
Wow.
It's about 3 and a bit hours long, I think. So it's not what you would normally get for the length of a normal audiobook. So first of all, it's written by Dirk Maggs. If you don't know who Dirk Maggs is, he's now the sort of king of audio dramatizations. He's the guy that wrote all of the other dramatized versions of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that weren't the ones written by Douglas Adams. Mm-hmm. He's done all sorts of amazing things in this space. So first of all, top-rate writer. Secondly, the whole cast is back. They've got David Duchovny, they've got Gillian Anderson, but not just that, they've got Mitch Pileggi as Walter Skinner, they've got the cigarette-smoking man, William B. Davis, they've got the lone gunman back.
Yeah,
it's like the whole gang is here. It's brilliant, so well done, really, really good.
Oh, I'm gonna have to get that one.
Yeah, so the problem is with Audible's pricing structure, because if you just want to go to Audible and buy a single book, it's super expensive. It's disproportionately expensive because what they're trying to do is. So I've got a subscription. So if you take out a subscription, you can get the books really, really cheaply. But if you buy them as one-offs, then that's not how they're trying. They want you to have the subscription.
Yeah.
So you end up having to, if you just want to get a one-off, you're having to drop actually really quite a lot of money on them. So for somebody like you, it's not ideal, but oh boy, is it a good listen. It's like I feel like I've put my I Want to Believe poster back up on the wall. It's just like being back there again.
Isn't it a missing X-File as well, though, isn't it?
So it's called Cold Cases. So it's sort of, resurrecting. So I'm not going to spoil it, but at the very beginning of the episode, Fox Mulder and Dana Scully aren't together. They're not in the FBI. They're not solving cases together. In actual fact, Dana Scully is operating as a doctor in a hospital under a completely different name, and she gets tracked down basically, and it causes her to go on the run, and that causes them to sort of resurrect these cold cases. So it brings them back together again because she's been threatened. So it's kind of a combination of all of those things, but they just nail it perfectly. So good.
I was talking to someone the other day about Firefly and said, now that a lot of the actors are not connected to major shows, it would be a great way to bring back the TV show in some form or another. But if they couldn't, or they didn't want to do something like that, then perhaps an audio drama would be another way to go with it.
And you can do these things same with the X-Files, same with some of the Blake Seven stuff that I've listened to. You can do these things 20 years later, and it doesn't matter. Because, you know, if they nail the feeling of it, it doesn't matter that the characters are, that the actors are older. All of these things just sort of, you know, drift away into the background, because actually it can take you back kind of more effectively than them doing new episodes of it on the TV or in the cinema. In some ways,
yeah.
You know, I guess so at the start of the audiobook, you get a few minutes where you kind of get this introduction. You know, it's the beginning of the story, but it's sort of like the teaser bit before the episode starts.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the music starts. and then you're like, yes! It's so good. So
what were
good.
the other two books then?
So the other two are also both by Dirk Maggs.
Okay.
And they're two alien stories. So they dramatize what happened to Ripley between Alien and Aliens in the first case.
Right.
So she got sort of revived and then got back. Eventually gets put back into stasis. That's not a spoiler because obviously she's in stasis in Aliens. But it's written by Dirk Maggs, who does it superbly. And the cast is amazing. I can't remember the name of the actress that's playing Ripley, but she sounds perfect. She sounds exactly like Sigourney Weaver in Alien and Aliens. And at the beginning of the first story, she even redoes the audio log when she's in the Narcissus just before she goes into hypersleep. But they expand on it, so she does like this longer log entry. And the cast is amazing. So Rutger Hauer is in it.
Wow.
Anna Friel is in it. Colin Salmon is in it. Alexander Siddig is in it, who is Dr. Bashir from Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
And they're brilliant. Again, they're under the guise of an audiobook because they're on Audible's website, but it's its own fully dramatized thing. It was, and that's kind of the difference when somebody reads Battle Mage as an audiobook. It's kind of it's a substitute. I'm not criticizing. I'm using Battle Mage because you wrote it. Obviously, I just want to mention it next time.
That's fine.
And I'm not. I mean, I love audiobooks. I'm not insulting audiobooks as a format, but it's essentially it's a translation of something that was designed for one medium into another medium. But these are 100% designed for audio, and all three of them bring together a fantastic cast and are just brilliantly done. Like I say, the frustrating thing is hard to get hold of if you don't have an Audible subscription. So I'm looking at, for example, looking at Alien River of Pain at the moment. Yeah. If you've got a subscription, you just use up a credit, which is going to cost you, I think, like £6 or £7 or something like that. If you just want to buy it as a one-off, it's 5 hours long, and it's going to cost you £20, which is really excessive. No matter how good it is, it's really excessive, in my opinion. And that's that's the problem with their business model. Because for somebody like you, who might really want to listen to the X-Files or these alien things, it's kind of pushing you out because you don't want a subscription because you're interested in these individual things. But apart from that, really good. Really recommend them.
Okay, so I've got a bit of news that's really important to me, and I think you'll enjoy it too. And it's something that there's still time to catch up with. So it's a couple of days' time. It'll be September, so we've still got a few months to the end of the year. 2018 will mark the 25th anniversary since Strangers in Paradise started.
Wow, that's a long time.
And he's bringing it back.
Wow.
So there's a thing that went up on on Terry Moore's website a few days ago, just an image of a door, and it just says, the door opens in January, Strangers in Paradise 25, XXV. And so next year, I think it's going to be a mini series, as far as I know. I don't know how many. We don't have many details, but to mark the 25th anniversary of when it first was printed all those years ago, and the number of formats he went through, the number of companies, the number of things he had to do and adjust it, and eventually he formed his own studio, Abstract Studio, and did it with them. I mean, it was at Image at one point, so I'm going to have to do a complete reread. I'm going to have to now before January, so that I'm right up to speed again and fresh in my memory before. So if you've never heard this show before, we've talked about it a lot on the old show. It's a fantastic comic book series. It's one of my favorites, written and drawn by Terry Moore. It's 6 pocket books that you can get, or you can get the trades, or you can get 2 massive omnibuses in a slipcase now. And it's absolutely fantastic series.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And it's one of the... So Terry Moore, back in our very, very, very early podcasting days, was, as somebody that was huge at the time, and was very well known and very successful, was the very first person, I believe, that was kind enough and gracious enough to be our first guest on Comic Book Outsiders back in the day.
Yes. Yes, he was.
And he was a fantastic guest, and he was just a lovely, lovely guy to speak to, both to interview and to sort of interact with on a personal level. And it was almost, as somebody that had been out of comics for a while, it was kind of the show that the comic that opened up to me the possibility of what comics are and what comics could be. And not because it was fantastical and it was about superheroes and crazy concepts and aliens and spaceships and all wild stuff like that, but it was actually the complete opposite of that. It was this slice of life drama about primarily the relationships between 3 people, and it was very much character led rather than plot led. And it just ended up exploding. I can't remember how many graphic novels he did, but each one is very thick, and it's a brilliant read. If you've got somebody who thinks of comics, isn't into comics, likes that sort of a story, and doesn't kind of see the point of comics, that's the perfect thing to get them into. Demonstrating that comics are a medium rather than a genre, because this is, real, down to earth, slice of life kind of a story, but just brilliantly written by Terry Moore.
Absolutely. So I'm really looking forward to that next year, and I'm going to have to reread all 6 of the pocket books to get me back up to make everything fresh in my mind, because I've no idea where it's going to go next. Yeah. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. So, do you have any more news?
Only one very minor thing, I think, which is something really, really interesting. I'm a big fan of, even though I can't properly pronounce his name, a big fan of Guillermo del Toro. He's done some really crazy films. He's one of those people that has a very, very distinct visual style and does some really dramatic, weird stuff. And he's about to start shooting, or early next year he's going to start shooting, a remake of Fantastic Voyage. Now, I don't know if... So a lot of people won't have heard of Fantastic Voyage. It's a 1960s sci-fi show written by Isaac Asimov about a crew of people on a submarine that gets shrunk down so they can be inserted inside a human body in order to save this person's life. Yeah. And it really feels to me like this, almost like the perfect marrying of this crazy visionary director doing this absolutely doing a setting that's really crazy and out there as well. And I just read that and I thought, that sounds he sounds like the perfect person to do that. So we're gonna have to wait a long while to see it, and he's been attached to other things in the past that have never come to fruition. But that was something that I would love to see him do. Yeah,
because we know he did the first 2 Hellboy films, and there was talk of him doing a third, but it never actually happened. Now they're doing a reboot. There was talk of him doing The Hobbit to begin with for a long time, remember?
Right up to the wire. A couple of weeks before it was meant to start.
Apparently, and then it dramatically didn't work for whatever reason, and Peter Jackson jumped into the chair, And as we know, we got the 3 Hobbit films. I think is just one too many at least. So
some might argue 3 too many.
I like the first one. I do like it, but I think it's definitely too long. So he's definitely, as you say, got a very unique eye, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does next. He's one of these people that I'll follow just because he's such an interesting character, and he always picks interesting projects. He's at that place in his career where he can do that now. Mm-hmm. He can pick and choose, so it's definitely worth seeing what he comes up with next. I mean, look at Pan's Labyrinth and things like that.
Yeah.
It's like if someone was going to remake The Black Crystal, you'd give it to him to do, or do a sequel in a film, you'd give it to him. It's just like, oh, what could he do with that? Or it could be anything bizarre and spectacularly interesting and visually remarkable. So, my last bit of news is tying into something we just spoke about before. Is Gillian Anderson recently tweeted a picture of her and David Duchovny on set of the new X-Files they're doing.
Right, cool.
So they've started filming this summer, which will be the sort of second series since it was revived. It'll be series 11, as it were. And we think it's going to air next year, as far as we know. And it's going to be 10 episodes this time around. And the 2 younger agents that we saw that were some ways, I'm going to say, similar to them. Similar, will also be reappearing in the new series. And that's about all we know. So it's underway, it's filming. They'll probably film the rest of this year. And then I'm going to guess maybe March it'll start and kick off, or maybe later. Who knows?
Yeah, cool. X-Files overload. Not overload. It's all good.
You never have too much X-Files.
Definitely not.
I definitely want to see what they do this time around. I'm hoping that they move it on a bit, because it was, I don't know, some of it felt a little bit stale, the new stuff. Maybe they were just scared that it wouldn't do very well, and they weren't kind of pushing the boundaries like they've done in the past, which they did really well. They explored all sorts of things, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
But I'm still excited to see it when it comes back.
Yeah, me too. I really enjoyed it. It was good to see them back in action again.
Yeah. So, is that it for this month?
I think so.
A lot of news there, a lot of things to chew on and go through. And hopefully by next month you'll have finished watching The Defenders. We can talk about that, and maybe do the first part no spoilers and the second half with spoilers or something, just so that we can talk about it.
Yeah, let's aim for doing that. That sounds great.
Okay.
As long as you don't ask me to summarise Alan Moore's Jerusalem for you.
By next month.
Yeah, we're good to go.
The next 5/6, you have to have read that and summarise it in less than 2 minutes. So.
Imagine if we were doing the book club. That would make an awesome April Fool's episode.
We have to give people 6 months to read it instead of
yeah.
Like, can you come back in about 6 months? Yeah, that's fair, I think. Maybe. Okay. So that's it for this episode. We'll be back in September. Don't forget to check out all of the other shows on the Geek Syndicate network. Go to geeksyndicate.co.uk. You can support this show and all of the other shows by going to Patreon.com/Geek Syndicate. And don't forget to talk to other fans of Grouchy Geeks on the Facebook group. Just look us up there and chat in with other listeners.
Brilliant summary.
Excellent. Cool. And if you really want to email us, you can. grouchygeeks@gmail.com.
Okay, I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Maybe I should pay more attention.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
In the meantime, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Good night.
Good night.